Hi, this is In My Hometown. I'm Jamie Stein. I'm here with Pascal, and we're continuing our golden era conversations. What are those? They are conversations about pretty much everything, except we have a bit of a slant toward people who are over 50, who are going in their golden era or in their golden era. There's a lot of conversation around that idea of who's golden, but that's where we are. And today we are diving into something that many couples feel, but not many maybe say out loud. What keeps a marriage strong over decades, and what happens when connection slowly turns to routine. So we're joined today, I'm so excited about this, we're joined by marriage and couples therapist Amy Lombardi. And we're just going to have a great conversation today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, before we do get into things, I just want to remind everyone to subscribe and to like and to make comments if you like this this material and what we're bringing to you. But so, Amy, you have been doing this for, is it 25 years?
25 years.
Yes.
As a couples therapist.
Yes,
25 years.
And, you know, with, as we've been talking a lot on the show about that right now, divorce rates are highest among couples who are over 50, and they're calling that, don't shoot the messenger, they're calling it gray divorce.
They are.
So what are you seeing in this group? And, you know, what are you suggesting to people in terms of how they can keep things alive?
Yeah, I am definitely seeing this trend in my office. I'm definitely seeing this. And, you know, as I've been doing this for 25 years, you see the trends kind of change. But more than ever before, I'm seeing couples not only in their 50s, but in their 60s and in their 70s. So these are couples who, you know, built careers together, they built homes together, they built a family together, and now they're looking at their relationship and they're saying, do I even like this person? You know, do I even want to be in this relationship anymore? And so divorce rates are actually going down
overall,
with the exception of this group, and this group is doubling and tripling in the divorce rate. So
but the marriage going down as well. Not as many people are getting married. So you have to take that in consideration.
That's correct.
You know, I just think then, you know, in our time, people were getting married in the early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s. Today, they are looking into the late 30s, early 40s. So the marriage went down, the divorce went down, but I mean, we have to make sure then, you know, the question I want to ask you is, how did you end up choosing that field as a profession? What made you decide? Because, you know, it's not an easy business. I mean, I've been to therapy myself, so I know a little bit about it. So how did you end up going through that field?
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in finance, and I worked in finance for 5 years and just did not feel fulfilled by it at all. So I was going to get my MBA at the time when you registered for classes on the phone. And I was like, I can't push in these. I've got to push in a psychology class. So I pushed it and I was sold. I was sold after that. And then I think any therapist goes in as kind of a generalist. You see depression, you see anxiety, you see teenagers, you see couples. And then my passion was just really for couples. You know, coming from a divorced family myself, I really wanted to try, you know, as much as I could. And I felt very inadequate. So there, you know, a lot of people who do therapy say, oh, I don't want to do couples. It's a whole different animal because you've got, you know, each person and then the relationship. So I personally love it. I think it's fantastic. And there's a couple certifications that are really, really helpful, science-backed certifications. Like, I don't know if you've heard of John and Julie Gottman. I trained with them, and then Terry Real, I trained with him. Esther Perel, you know, follow a lot of her stuff.
I love.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So now I feel like very, very like I have a good plan for how to help every couple that comes in. I use the same tools with everyone. I always tell people it's not rocket science. The tools are out there. The tools to have a better relationship are out there if you choose to use them.
Yeah. And so what is it then about this midlife point? It's is it that like you said, once the kids leave, you sort of look at each other. But how do you know that you're not just hitting a rough patch and that it's something more?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, Esther Perel talks about this, that she thinks every person will have 3 marriages. She just hopes they're to the same person. So you've got this period at the beginning where, you're building, you're growing, you're getting to know each other. And then you have kids. I think a lot of people have kids. That's the second stage. And then you're coming out of that stage and you want to make sure you're prepared for what does life look like in this next stage. And a lot of couples are busy. A lot of what I see, you would think it would be finances as a number one, but it's disconnection as a number one. Like the number one thing people come in to see me for is disconnection. So, have you been making time to keep the relationship alive? And if you haven't, and you've gone just your separate ways during child raising stage, then when your kids are getting to the point where they're, more independent, they're ready to leave the house, you do look at each other and say, what is this going to look like going forward?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that that's that roommate piece? It's
Exactly.
Sort of
Exactly. You've been living parallel.
Yes.
Yeah. You've been living kind of parallel lives.
So when you have children, I believe then, when you meet, when you start getting married and you start having a honeymoon stage, you travel, you do a lot of stuff, you're both on your career. But I think the second step you mentioned is when you have children. Children change everything. You know that, I have them, Jimmy, then all of a sudden the children become the center of attention and it seemed like the man or the woman felt a little bit left behind because the kids got that attention. And that's where the resentment start coming up. I don't have what you used to give me. We don't have as much sex as we have because you're tired. And I think that's what I call the middle-age crisis, where the kids are coming up and taking our time away from us. Am I right?
Exactly.
So what would you suggest to a couple who got married, who went into the honeymoon stage, who's got couple kids now who are in the, like an infant stage, 4, 5, 6 years old? How do they keep that romance? How do they keep that excitement to be able to have the longevity?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
I always ask good questions, that's Jimmy.
So,
I was actually thinking it wasn't a great question.
That wasn't a great question?
It was a good question.
That was a good question.
Yeah, so something I do that is kind of unique is every couple that I see, I do a repair of the whole relationship with them. And so I see where things fall off. I ask them to each tell their story of the relationship.
With the other person there, or
both of them there.
Okay.
They both get an opportunity to share their story of the whole marriage. I'm talking about 10 years, 20 years, 50 years.
In front of each other.
With me as the mediator.
Yes.
And they will usually describe it falling off with kids.
I'm sorry, you said?
But things falling off track with kids.
Okay.
So with kids, and 70% of marriages report less satisfaction after children. So kids come in, the wife feels like she's not supported, she's not getting enough help. She, didn't get there's a lot of stories about the pregnancy stage, the first bringing the child home stage. The father feels like she thinks I'm kind of an idiot. Like when I go to do something, she tells me I'm doing it wrong. I used to get this attention from her. Now I'm not getting this attention from her. And they really move into that career because that's where they feel the most rewarded. I'm coming home and being told I'm stupid because I don't know how to change a diaper. And so they really move into career where they feel good about themselves. And they lead these parallel lives. Yeah. So I think one thing I do with every couple who's about to have a child, is we sit down and have a discussion about, what are you most worried about? What are your expectations? What are your feelings about this? So they can know going into having that child what they need from each other the most. And I have every couple about to have a child go through that with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So would you say then that it would be a good idea to go into some therapy at that point?
Absolutely.
Right, like sort of the,
Absolutely.
Is it called like prophylactic therapy or preparation?
Yeah. I think it's preventative.
Yes, preventative.
At that stage, it's preventative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the couples that I see that come to me 10 years, 20 years after having children, I always think, man, I wish I would have seen you 10 or 20 years ago because we could have avoided so much of this. And women have these fantasies, I think, about their birth story, and then it's a C-section or something rough happens, and they're not prepared for it. Where I have clients talk about before having a baby, what if there's postpartum depression? What if feeding is an issue? What if the hospital visit does not go well? How many people do you want to visit the baby so that they don't have these breaks and resentments that happen in this stage? Because I get most people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who had those break decades ago.
Yeah, I have bags in back of me, my baggage that I have.
Exactly. They're still carrying
and I
it around.
take one out every time we have a fight.
Exactly.
But it's really, I think that the kids' time it's very difficult. And when you sort of come out of that, if you can come out of it together, you can be stronger.
Yeah.
But you might build a lot of resentment in between, because
sure.
I'm a great believer that when you meet, you're young and you go, like I said, to the honeymoon stage where those 3, 4, 5, 6 years of traveling, spending time every time together, devoted your attention 100%, and all of a sudden you have children. And then some of them, and I'm not taking over all, but some of them want to stop their career and raise the children. And to me, that's the biggest mistake anyone could make, because you're losing your independence. Now you're completely dependent of your partner to be able to buy you your makeup, to buy you food, to buy whatever you want to buy. You have to ask him. So all of a sudden, the scale
power
goes
dynamic.
down. The power dynamic goes
yeah.
down. So I've always said to myself, and that's the challenge I had in my marriage, was I wanted my wife to work. I wanted her to have a career. I wanted her to wake up in the morning, go to work, come back at night, and let's take care together of our children, versus her taking care of the children all day long, and I come home after a long day and say, oh, I'm so tired, it's yours. And that's the dynamic, and that's what led us to our divorce.
It's very common. And then, I see a lot of people who did both, like one where they both had a career, one where usually the wife, stayed home with the children. And the same conversation I'm talking about pre-having children, I want people to have it pre-going into this next stage where their kids are a bit older, because if a woman was a stay-at-home mom, she's really needing to reinvent herself in this next stage. Do you want to travel? Do you want to spend time with the kids? Do you want to wind down your career, or do you want to, build up your career? What does that next stage look like? And there is a lot of resentment that's built over those last couple decades. I see so much resentment. And I will say this, like, a lot of people come in and they say, our libidos are different. Our libidos are different.
Yeah.
And I would say that resentment and not being able to be honest in your relationship are the biggest things that get in the way of sex and intimacy.
Right. And maybe a lock on your door.
or sleeping.
I've heard that one before.
or sleeping in separate bedroom.
Well,
sleeping in a
That's
separate bedroom.
I'm totally against that. I think regardless, you gotta sleep in the same bedroom.
I don't know. I think a lot of people hide that they sleep in separate bedrooms. I don't know that it has to be a killer for intimacy. I think it depends on what the situation is. But I will say that I wish I could go back. We did not have a lock on our door, but I'm not sure it would have changed. It was, I think that having young children is hard. We had 2-career family. And going back to what you were talking about, Pascal, because you brought this up a lot about your experience with, having a wife that was stay at home. I don't know that there's one way that is the best way or the easiest way. I think that, I worked and I found it extremely difficult. We were very much like passing ships and just trying to literally keep it together. I always said if we had a third child, we would never survive.
Yeah. I mean, I hear with 2 people who work more of the exhaustion that creeps in, when I have, I would agree, the distance when you have a stay-at-home mom, but the exhaustion that creeps in when you have 2 working people as well.
So
I don't,
giving up one thing for another.
I hear you. I hear you on both sides, but I just think, to me, it is very important for the woman to keep an identity. Yeah. And I believe very strongly when a woman is still home taking care of a kid, and believe me, it's a full-time job. You understand that? I mean, I've seen it. It's a lot of work. Okay, I wouldn't want that job. But I think they lose their independence, they lose their identity, because they take care of the kid and they really not in the outside with making the mind, the appearance and everything. They have tendency to themselves go a little bit because they're with a kid all day long. They throw up, they change diapers. So I think, to me, I feel like personally, my partner will have to work.
Yeah, okay? And I think it's a preference. Like before having children, I would want people to have the same conversation about, what do you want? I mean, before you even get married, what do you want when we have children? Do you want to stay at home? Do you want to be someone who works? I think those are discussions are things to be had sooner rather than later.
I had that conversation before I get married. I had that conversation, and we both had an understanding. And then the first kid came up, and the understanding started changing. And the second kid come up, and the understanding are completely changing. I don't want to work. I want to take care of my kid. I don't want anybody to take care of my kid. But that's not the deal we made.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And that's why we start creating resentment, and I start going out more with my friend, and spend more time with my friend, and temptation, and
Yeah.
I think that, like I always tell people, good couples negotiate, and you have to have those conversations and then come up with something that you both are okay with. Otherwise, if you say yes to something you're not okay with, then the resentment is going to build, you know, and whether she said yes to going back to work and wasn't going to be okay with it, or she said no to going back to work and you weren't going to be okay with it, that's where the resentment builds.
Yeah. And I mean, people change their minds, but I think
it's a big change. Okay, it's a big change. And remember also, let's talk about financially. Okay, I mean, you know, the average income is what it is, and you know, some people need 2 income to be able to raise children. So you cut down an income, and you have one. Now we're struggling financially. Now, not only we're struggling financially, but we're resentful for what's happening, because this is not what we planned it.
yeah.
And that's where it happens. Like then the husband is resentful because of all the stress he's taking on, all the pressure he's taking on to be the only person financially. And then the wife is resentful because they're working so hard at their career that she's the only one handling the stuff at home. And so the resentment builds on both sides. And I think, you know, I was just reading this morning because I wanted to be sure. The average married couple spends 20 to 40 minutes talking to each other a week. A week.
Wow.
Right.
Not a lot.
So you're carving out time for your work meetings and your, you know, doctor's appointments, your kids' soccer games, your kids' music lessons. But these people aren't carving out time to talk to each other. So to me, the biggest thing to stay on track is you have to be intentional, because at this stage of life, you're just putting out fires.
Yes.
This kid's sick. You know, this kid needs this. My work is changing this. So you have to be intentional with how are we going to carve out a half an hour a day, you know, to be able to talk to each other.
I mean, that's crazy. That is a crazy stat that
Wow,
you just
I'm
said.
a-
Right.
20 to
But I
40 minutes a
believe
week.
it. But I believe it.
About non-logistics.
Yes.
About logistics, there's more, but about
about them,
non-logistics.
about them,
No, I
About
believe
themselves
about
and their
feeling, about
relationship, and how was their day, and that kind of thing.
What about too the different way that men and women experience disconnection, and and it's like that a man feels it, and so he'll maybe want to be intimate because then the connection happens from the intimacy. Whereas I don't want to speak for all females, but
You're
the
probably right on track.
Okay, the female wants some connection before the intimacy, and so it's sort of like we're totally off.
It's a vicious cycle, right? You know, the women typically. Now, I'm not saying I don't see. I get in trouble sometimes. I don't want to be absolute. Sometimes it's the other way. But women typically want that connection, that emotional connection, the emotional support before they want to be sexually
I want him to be nice to me before I get into bed.
And men typically want sexual intimacy.
And then they're going to
When
be
intimacy
more
to feel the
emotional. But I've learned that. I've learned
So
that.
it's a vicious cycle.
Yes.
It's a vicious cycle.
So we women have learned that, and so you know sometimes you'll go into it because I know that he'll be in a better place afterward.
Yes,
but I
So you
think women and men are just so off.
They're wired differently.
But
in that way,
I think
typically.
intimacy is very important in any relationship. I mean, if you don't have that, and again, when you have children, when you have the resentment, and particularly, I would like more women. I think when they feel the resentment, they totally sexually blocked out. Okay, and men doesn't understand that. They say, "Why? You know, I mean, look, we let pass that and let have sex."
Yeah.
And I think some men are very sexually deprived, and that's why they go to the challenging of getting divorced and said, "Hey, you know, I got that woman at my office who's giving me a bit of attention and the high rise," and that's how it starts.
So what do you counsel some couples when they encounter that and those differences, the gender differences?
I mean, it's every couple that I see these days. And you know, I don't see couples, because I've been doing this 25 years and have the certifications. I don't see couples who have minor communication struggles. You know, I see couples who have real issues.
Right.
And it is something that I talk about with every single couple. And it's interesting, like one question that I have every couple ask the other person is, what does intimacy mean to you? That means different things to different people.
Yeah.
And almost no one has ever asked that question, to their partner. So, you would think that for men, they would say, well, that's about sex. And very rarely do I have a man say that it's about sex. Now, it is more about touch. Like, I would like to hug. I would like to sit closer on the sofa. I would like to hold hands. I would like to kiss. But even, doing things together for men like shoulder-to-shoulder attention. They like doing things, where women are more face-to-face connection. We want to talk. So for women, they want more emotional support. They want more support in the home. Those are the things that make them more intimately connected, and have the desire to have sex. So if you have a couple, if I have a couple that I'm working with that has resentment, or they feel like they can't be honest because there's defensiveness and there's criticism, their intimacy is not good.
Right.
I guarantee it.
And if there is no good intimacy, then that's where the problem comes up. That's when they file for divorce, and then they become a...
Well, they get into what's called this roommate syndrome, where they become roommates for a long time, and then that could be for long periods.
Long periods.
Right.
They become roommate because of the children, Jamie. I think a lot of them will not leave their kids just because of they don't want their kid to be without the parents. I have a lot of friends of mine who are married, who are not happy in their marriage, but they don't want their kid to be going through a divorce. So they stick together and they are roommates. They live their life separately. They go out with their friends separately.
Right. I'm saying it in a little bit of a different, it's not necessarily that far along or pronounced that they're just living separate lives. I'm saying sort of more of you feel like a roommate, and that could be, I don't know, we've had some stages like that, and then we have a big kumbaya and we discuss it.
Yeah.
Just because you get so busy in things and you don't really realize how long. And this is, again, for us, was more when the kids were little.
Yeah.
We're in a honeymoon period right now.
Yeah,
my
they're
kids
gone.
are older.
It's lovely, isn't it? I'm an empty nester.
Look,
It's lovely.
So we're all in the same wave.
Well, and I'll tell
It's
you,
wonderful.
If you can make it through too, I mean, I'm not saying, believe me, we're not perfect, but just this idea that too, the sex for women, or the libido, the men, is it true that the female libido goes up a little bit at menopause, or at least I don't know, and then sometimes it goes down a little bit.
I thought the menopause goes down, no? When women go to menopause.
I would
some
say it
women,
goes down.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. We talked to Jamie the
am I
last
off?
time, and we were talking about when a woman goes to menopause, the sex goes down a little bit. They're not that they don't crave as much as they.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say it goes down, but also, like, when you look at the relationship, is there that resentment there? Is that inability to be honest? Because then it's gone down as well. But also, as kids leave the home, or they're old enough to have a car and they're out and about, it leaves more space for you to connect.
Yes.
So I think at this point, that we're talking about, either your marriage is going to get better, or it's going to crumble.
Right. So how do you, so I have two of those questions. One was, I asked earlier, was how do you know if it's sort of past that point of, like, it's not in just a dip and it's just sort of this point? And is it can it be too late to save a marriage?
Yeah. So I think someone has to have the courage. Okay. When we're in our adult space, we can have the courage to say, I think we're disconnected. Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Not just can we go have a date night once a week, but I feel disconnected. Can we talk about this? And I want people to have the courage to do that, because a lot of people walk around with resentment and they haven't even said that to their partner. And I want you to be able to say, I feel disconnected, or I feel like we're really off track right now. And it's, in a perfect world, I'm going to model it for you. You say, I love you. I care about you. I care about our family. And, these are the things I've noticed, and I feel disconnected. And I'm telling myself that we're not going to make it if we don't have some of these conversations, if we don't talk about some of these things. Would you be willing to go to therapy with me, or would you be willing to go to course with me?
Could you have had that conversation?
I mean, I would. I think I would. I mean, remember, I'm much older, so those type of things didn't exist in my time.
Right.
You're not happy. We go to mediation. We see what we have. We fight divorce, and we move on. We don't go to somebody who's explaining to us what we need to do to improve our relationship. And I think, as time goes on, there is more opportunity to do that. And I think if you were in my period of time when I went through divorce and I knew about you, I think I would have definitely used your services to try to save my marriage. What can I do to save my marriage?
So if a couple it's been years for them and they haven't been intimate, is it too late for them? No, not if one person.
That's not what I would say would determine it, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, something that I'm noticing is a lot of couples coming in who are already living separate. Maybe they've been living separate for months or even a year. They come see me. They got to the point, I'm going to be honest, that like a lot of what I see is during these years, men are focusing on their careers and women are focusing on their careers maybe too, but parenting, but self-growth. So they grow, they do a lot of therapy, they find their voice, and then they say, well, you haven't done that. You haven't done that. And I don't want to deal with this anymore. So it's usually the women. And so I'm getting a lot of calls now from men at this stage saying, my wife just told me she wants me to move out, or my wife just told me she's getting divorced. And I will say in that group, almost all of them that I see come out not only choosing to stay together and move back in with each other, but choosing to, to me, a success is not two people miserable staying together. They choose to be happier together. They choose to be more vulnerable and more open with each other. Now, I would say the people who can't bring it back, that's when you're talking about some more severe trust breaks, or
like infidelity maybe, or
and even I work with a lot of people with infidelity and they come back, but more like, I'm sure you're hearing about this, more personality type disorder issues, more narcissistic type traits. Some of those relationships are harder to bring on back on track because one person is not able to hear what they've done in the relationship without getting that severe defensiveness coming up. But if you've got two people who are willing to come in and willing to work on things, and we go through it's 2 days I sit with a couple. By the end of those 2 days, I say, you are a different couple this afternoon than you were yesterday morning when you come in here. But they have to want it. Like it or not, our childhood plays into so much of what we bring into our adult relationships. So we have to get vulnerable about, well, this is why I do what I do. This is why I work so hard. My parents went through a bankruptcy and I was so scared. So, I will see men who come in and they're like, well, I'm not an emotional kind of guy. And I'll ask them one or two questions and they'll start to break down emotionally. Like, oh, this happened in my family and I was told to be the little man of the house by the time I was, 6 years old or 7 years old. And so, these things that we grew up with, I'm not saying that to blame parents.
You don't, but some of it you're saying you don't even know.
You don't even know, and you have to understand it. So that's the part of it that I love, is helping couples figure out, this is what you do and here's why. This is what you do and here's why. No wonder.
But this is the Freudian effect, where your childhood affect who you are as you grow up. I know that I have been affected by my childhood because of the way I was raised, the way my parents raised us, the way my parents were communicating. And I think that, I carry that over the years. As I grow up, I realize, this is not really working for me.
Exactly.
And you readjust because you have more understanding about who you are as a person. But I agree with you. I think we have tendency to bring our past back from where we come as a baby to who we are and we create our personality.
Yeah, when we first got married, my parents celebrated 60 years this year, so now it's wonderful. But my mom would tell you that she probably wanted to leave him several times over this time, and they've worked through everything, and then you get to a point. But I think one of the things that I learned from them is that they argued. I mean, they yelled and argued, whereas my husband came into the relationship and his parents had divorced. He'd never heard them fight through but then they got divorced. So I think he came over to my side on the arguing. And so we argued a lot.
And it's all
you argue a lot.
It's good.
Oh, okay.
As a child, it all depends on how you take in that information. So you could have a child who came from a family that argued a lot, who hates arguing.
Yes.
And you could have a child who comes from a family that argued a lot, that's like, what? This is what you do. And then you get with someone whose family never argued and they either
out.
want to argue or
Right.
they hate arguing. It just depends on how the childhood perceived. Like I could hear about someone's history and be like, oh, they are because of this, that, and the other. No, it's however they perceived these things that happen in their childhood.
Yeah, I mean, in my childhood, I remember, I come from a family of 8 children. My mother never had sit me out on her lap and said, hey, I love you, let's read a book. My father, and, I think I was very affected by that. I was very, how you call it, a bit resentful. I was open up. I was not. And as I got older and I got children, I said, I don't want to be like my parents. I want to take care of my son. I want my son to sit next to me, and I want to read him a book at night before he goes to bed. And I want to tell them how much I love them and support them. And, I think you learn as you grow, and you readapt and readjust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you hear that a lot of people are like, well, I didn't learn a lot from my parents, but I learned what I didn't want to do. And they get into a relationship and it's like, okay, but you don't know how to do it the right way either. So you go in with the best of intentions to not, repeat some of the things that your family did, but you don't know how to do it. Right. And I think that's where I come into the picture. And this information has been out for years on how to communicate better, how to share better. And most people just don't know how to do it. And they get stuck in these cycles. And then with time, those cycles build resentment. But it really doesn't have to go that way.
Yeah.
The tools are there.
But are there ever any marriages that you see or relationships that you see that you just know they really are not, they shouldn't be together? Maybe they shouldn't have ever gotten together?
There's been a few. Yes.
I'm sure that
Do you
been a
share
few.
that or you let them
Absolutely.
come to that?
It's very important for me, and I remember taking an ethics course on this earlier, because they look to you for answers as an expert. So it's very important to me not to make that decision for someone. But, if I'm seeing something that's blatantly obvious right in front of me, I may look at the other partner and say, well, he or she is showing you what they're capable of.
Right.
You get to decide what to do with that data.
Right.
And that's my way of kind of saying, this is the best you're going to get. Do you want to stay with this or do you not want to stay with this? If something is very toxic, I won't even see a couple that's in a domestic violence situation or like, okay, you need to go see someone individually to get that taken care of. But if someone's in an extremely toxic situation, have I said it through the years?
Would you be honest with your patient? You say, look, after I listened to you for 2 days, you have no business being together.
I have.
I think it's better for you to separate amicably and move on. So you have, okay.
Yeah, I have. But I would say, I want people to be hopeful as a result of this. Most people can
come to
they can, unless you're really dealing with some more severe things. You can, if you want to.
Right.
And sometimes, you might be able to, but you might say, you know what, just too much time has gone by. I'm too hurt. I don't really want to make this work. But at least you went through the process, and you can, if you do divorce, you can divorce with, more, it can be more amicable. You can be more pleasant to each other. So I've had couples definitely, who have divorced for sure. And they say, we're still glad we went through the process so we could be more amicable. One thing I was going to say to what you were saying earlier is like, when I have couples share their vulnerable childhood stories, like you just shared about your mother not having time for you. If I'm your partner, I hear that. I have more empathy. I have more compassion. I have more understanding. Like, oh, he's not doing that because he doesn't care about me. He's doing it because of what he's seen growing up. And that's not to say we should just stay that way. Right. We have to adjust and move forward. But once you hear your partner's vulnerable story, you have so much more empathy and understanding for them. And you can say, oh, I don't ever want to make you feel like your older brother did when he was punching you and throwing you in the closet. I don't ever want to make you feel like that.
You should have that. If the response is that in arguments that's brought up and then it's sort of used as a weapon against you, then that would be a really big red flag.
And as soon as you use someone's vulnerability against them, you've really broken down the trust.
Right.
So I make sure it's a safe environment for them to bring up their vulnerability. And you'll see, if your partner leaves and uses your vulnerability against you, then do you really want to be with that?
Right.
You know?
So if somebody comes to you, it's because they want to save their marriage. Otherwise, they wouldn't.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
It's not just coming for
Absolutely.
maintenance. It's like to save. They come to you like
To save
they're
their
at a
marriage.
point where.
Yeah, at this stage,
Yes.
it used to be, but
Right.
at this stage in my
They come up
career,
to
they're
save you
coming to,
Yes.
they're coming to save.
So they come up and they want to, obviously, they still have feeling for each other. Otherwise,
Right.
they wouldn't come to you. They would go to the divorce
Now, one
attorney.
person may be more leaning out. They may be more skeptical, like, yeah, I don't really know if this can change, but they're still coming
So
through
when you
the
take
process.
when you take the couple, who is the most inclined to come and see you, the man or the woman?
I would say at the beginning of my career, women, like, you know, it's saying that, you know, men are being dragged into therapy, kicking and screaming by their women. But I'm seeing a lot more men because the divorce numbers are 70%, I've heard even 80% women. So the men are coming, you know, they're calling saying, you know, my wife just told me she's not in love with me anymore, or she's had enough. And then men are calling to come in. So I would say it's more, I don't know if it's 50-50. I don't know exactly, but I would say I've definitely seen an increase of
And
men
increase
reaching
men coming
out.
up to you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And like you were mentioning about, you know, when you went through your divorce, I might be wrong, but I think, you know, COVID definitely opened up the space for mental health to be normalized. And so, you know, the amount of couples who were trying to see me during COVID was crazy. It was just through the roof. But I think
we were together so much.
oh my gosh, it was
24/7,
brutal.
Nowhere to
7 days
go.
a week for 4 months. you know.
Brutal on marriages, right? Brutal. But I think it opened up the space for mental health to not be so stigmatized because, like I said, I'd never had clients in my 70s. The last 5 years, though, I've had more clients in my 70s over the last 12
So
months.
they're
even.
in their 70s. Their kids are like what ages? Like
30s,
30s,
40s.
35,
Yeah.
and they're
40s,
coming
yeah.
to you because they've been. Are they retired? some of them?
They're usually
hitting-
retired
okay.
or you know,
Yes, near.
you know, kind of navigating that space of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And usually one person it says, I don't want this anymore. You know, I'm tired of not being connected. I'm tired of bringing things up to you and you getting defensive, you know. So one person is usually more leaning out when you're in the older relationship.
So where are they going at 70
I know,
years
it's
old?
70,
you know,
we're-
we've talked, Jamie and I talk
Yeah.
about the relationship, reinventing yourself, marriage, dating. You know, when you reach the mid-50s, the early 60s, and the late 60s, it's very, very, very difficult to find a partner.
I think so, too.
So you have
they
someone.
should stay. Make it better. They should go to.
So there,
to
it's
Amy.
two bad choices, right? It's like, do I stay miserable, or do I leave? And you know, the likelihood of me finding a partner is, you know, is very slim. But maybe at least I'll have peace. You know,
But if those people are leaving because they have somebody on the side, because usually men don't just leave because, you know, men usually has got an affair, man's got a girlfriend, man's got a woman who's giving them attention. This is what it is.
I
men
agree.
don't leave
for
like
different
that.
reasons. So
women would, but men don't.
yeah, men typically when they come in the 50s, 60s,
They have
70s,
somebody on the
They have
side.
someone on the side. When women come in, it's because they have done this self healing, this self work, and they're wanting peace. You know, they're wanting more peace.
I think too
So,
that
I would agree.
Sometimes it could be lonelier to be alone with someone than alone without someone.
Absolutely. And you know, I ask everyone like what triggers them in this relationship, and I have a kind of a cheat sheet that people pick from. And lonely is often there, right? So loneliness is an epidemic. You know, loneliness is worse for you than smoking, 15 cigarettes a day. But a lot of people are lonely in their marriages and their relationships. So they're coming in saying, I don't, if I'm going to be lonely, I would rather be lonely by
Right.
myself.
Go out with your girlfriend.
Travel the world, go out with friends, pick up a hobby, that kind of thing. So I agree with I'm not seeing a lot of men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s asking to, maybe potentially leaving the relationship unless they are seeing someone else.
Men don't leave just for the heck of living. Men leave because they have somebody on the side who give them the attention the wife doesn't.
I agree.
And men are very like we talked a little bit. For women to have intimacy, she has to have feelings. She has to be loved, to be touched, to be.
Yeah.
Men to have intimacy, she just want to have sex.
Right.
And it seemed like a woman sometimes weaponize the sex to the man. You're not nice to me. I don't want to have sex with you. And then I think that's what triggered the resentment.
I think men could see it as weaponizing, but it's just really that they don't want to. Why would I want to have sex with someone who like we are not getting along?
And again, but the men see it in a different way.
They want
the men
to get
feel
along,
like,
so
oh,
they
you
want
know
to have
what?
sex
She doesn't
because
have sex
we
with me. And then all of a sudden, when you sexually deprived, okay, you start looking.
Yeah.
That's what men does.
Well, and I think, most men are, if everyone talks about anxious personality, anxious attachment and avoidant attachment, men are typically more avoidant. So they're not very good at asking for what they need or what they want or sharing their feelings. So they're feeling all this, but they're not necessarily saying it. So, I always tell people, I would rather have you come to the relationship, say, I like I said earlier, I love you. I want to be with you. We're not intimate. And I'm really afraid I'm really afraid I might go outside of our marriage, and I don't want to do that.
Right.
I would rather have people do that than the devastation that comes with infidelity is, you've put your partner in PTSD at that point. It looks exactly the same. Intrusive thoughts, anxiety, depression, the images that come flashing. So as hard as it is, I would rather you say, I'm so afraid this relationship is so off track that I might be tempted by someone else than not have that conversation and then be tempted by someone else. Okay. But it takes that courage and that bravery, right? That's a very hard conversation to have. But think about it. Would you rather find out that your husband cheated, or would you rather have them come to you and say, I'm really worried about this.
Exactly.
Let's go get help for this.
Right.
I would rather have that. And women too, coming to their partners, like, what is getting in the way of you wanting to be intimate with me? Like, go to your partner and ask them that, and then don't get defensive about it. Really hear them out, And a lot of times I hear a couple where the man can be very, angry or aggressive. And so sex doesn't feel safe with someone like that. And being able to say, I want our intimate life to be better too, but this is what's going on. And when you do things like that, I don't feel safe with you, or you're irritated all the time, or you don't want to listen to me, and have the other partner not get defensive about that, but really listen to it, because that's the key to getting your sex life back.
Right.
But after many years of marriage, after many years of marriage, how do you keep the sex drive exciting and fun? Because, it's after a while, I'm not going to say it, but if you eat the same steak for 10 years, you get tired of the steak, So how do you put some some pepper on it, or how do you put some béarnaise on it? How do you get it? I'm sure that's
a good question. How do you keep things exciting?
Thank you, Jamie.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes.
I would have to say then, most men who get divorced is because sex is involved, because they're sexually frustrated. And so how do a woman and a man as well, make it exciting? Do they watch pornography? Do they bring toys? Do they put some sewing machine? Do they, whatever they need?
Machine?
Smoke machine, strobe light. Anytime to make it fun. I think to me, she's going to bed and boom, and.
Yeah. Right. It can be very routine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think you have to be more intentional.
Yeah.
You have to be more intentional, and you have to talk about it. I'll see couples who are like renovating their whole house, and there's a million conversations around that, or, do we put the kids in private school or public school, or, which team do we want? But they don't talk about sex. So I think you have to talk about it.
I do.
Yeah,
I say, hey, I like this, I like that.
Yeah.
You gotta do this, you gotta do that for me.
I don't want.
I want the red light. I want the pole. I want the whip.
Jamie,
I want the chain.
I do too. I do too.
You got
I think that's very important.
You got to.
No, especially at our age.
Things
are different.
I don't want to hear about Pascal.
No, what do you mean?
But I
what do you mean? Just tell your husband to buy you a pole.
Yeah.
Okay. And put couple strobe light, and you watch how excited that's going to be.
No, we have the conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like, we talked about before about getting older, and I was saying menopause. I more meant women after 40 sort of hit their libido stride, I think. And I also have said this on one of our shows, that I feel like I'm 54 and I don't care anymore. Like I'll just say whatever I want now, and it's so freeing. I love it.
I think that's very common for women. Yeah. You know how like little boys shut down emotions.
Yes.
Little girls at some point shut down their voice. Like we feel like it's not okay to say things like that. But I would agree with you, talking about, it's almost like a debrief. Like, what did you like?
Yeah.
What didn't you like? What would you like to try again? Those kind of conversations I think are really, really helpful. But I do agree with you. I think you lose some of that filter I'm 52. So,
Right.
you lose some of that filter
And it's
as you get
great.
older, and it's like, who cares? And like, who cares what my body looks like in this moment? Like you let go of some of that.
You let go. And I would also just say, watch Tell Me Lies. There's a bunch of shows to watch that I would suggest.
Tell me lie. I don't know. I watch Pornhub.
Okay. Well, that's yours. Tell Me Lies is my Pornhub. Okay. But so talking
about, I do think you
things,
can, it doesn't have to be something huge, but create, go to a hotel room instead of, staying at home one night,
Right.
Go try a new activity with each other, try a new hobby with each other. There's millions of things you can do out there, try something new. A lot of people at the kid stage, they really have a hard time with date nights. And I say, those can be date happy hours, like go sit on the porch, with a glass of wine and a little appetizer and talk to each other. So you just have to be more creative. I think, at the beginning of a relationship, chemicals are being released that help you make that attachment. And then when that goes away, and then you add kids, and you add a dog, you add a house, you add kids, you add more stress. It's not something that's right in front of you anymore. You have to be more intentional with it. Right. So making the space, having the intentionality, I think is really important. And discussing it, like what is getting in the way? I'm feeling disconnected. What's getting in the way of our intimacy lately? And being able to hear someone who's honest.
So they come up to you 2 days on a roll, am I right?
Correct.
For how many times do they do that? Is it just one shot, 2 days, and they're done? Or the next month they're coming back another 2 days? Is there follow through, or is it just a 2-day session?
Yeah, every couple I start with, they come in for a 2-day intensive, and that's becoming very popular. And I say the reason is, if you go to a doctor and you're bleeding out or your leg is broken, and they're like, let's do physical therapy once a week for 50 minutes, you're never going to get any better.
Right.
So, I get these, marriages that have been, maybe they're not fighting all the time, but they're very, very disconnected, or there's been an infidelity. They come in for 2 days, and then after the 2 days, I will do follow-up. So I'll say, let's meet in a month for accountability. How are things going? What do you still need help with? So we'll meet on Zoom. The intensives are in person. And then after that, we'll meet on Zoom, maybe once a month for 90 minutes.
Okay.
90 minutes.
So you have a follow-through. It's not just 2 days and then goodbye.
No, I think they still need additional help, but most couples therapy sessions are 50 to 60 minutes. And they're like, we're just getting started. And then we leave more angry than when we started because we're just diving into it. So I've never done 50 minutes. I've done 90, but out of COVID, for me, birthed the intensives because so many people were struggling who were bleeding out. And now I won't go back to doing anything else.
Very interesting.
Yeah. They come for 2 days.
So I want to talk a little bit about this too. You've been on Reality Steve's show a lot. He's a friend of ours, and he loves you. And you talk a lot about Love is Blind. I want to talk a little bit about that concept, and also the younger people. As Pascal mentioned at the top of this episode, younger people are not getting married in high numbers. What's your take first on Love is Blind? Can love be blind? And is that a good way to start a relationship with just, the idea of it, the concept of getting to know someone without seeing them is interesting, but we are so visual creatures. And right.
I think initially it's an interesting concept, but as more people hear about it and they know, and they're recruiting people, they're certainly, not all people who want to get married. And then it's interesting because what breaks a lot of couples up once they get out of the pods is they see each other and there's not that physical attraction.
I've seen some of those cringy moments.
It's very cringy.
I never watched a show.
You date in a blind setting in a pod. And you get to meet someone, and then it's revealed. You get engaged in the pod before you even
without
see the person. And then you get revealed, and you'll see some of them be like, "Oh, that's not what I expected." Right.
But it's to show you that sometimes you could have some fantastic communication and great vibes, and then the one thing who's missing is the physical attraction and could blow this away. So it has to be the whole package. And I've always said that to Jamie in our podcast. My first impression is visual impression. I have to be visually attracted by that person to engage a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see
Which
that.
some people call shallow.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm shallow. I have no doubt. I am shallow.
Well,
No,
think about the
I love
swiping
you. I'm just
culture.
joking.
You know,
I'm just
the
joking.
dating culture is the swipe
Yes,
culture. Like
yes.
you're looking at that
You look at
person.
the picture.
and
You don't like the
and
picture,
then
you change.
swipe.
I kid. I kid you. I kid
Yeah,
No, I know.
Yeah, no, I think some of them, some of them have made the connection and then they see each other and then their marriages last. But like a lot of reality shows, they have very low. Love is Blind has very low
Yes.
success rates. I think the danger to it, and we actually saw it on this season play out. I think the danger to it is a month can be very love bombing. You like anyone can hide really negative character traits for a month.
Right.
You've really, when you start dating, you've got to be, optimistic, but also realistic that you don't know that person yet. So I think you can get in a pretty dangerous situation in a short amount of time because people can hide true problems for a short amount of time.
But that's the honeymoon stage, when you want to conquer a woman or when you want to, you really, you are in your best behavior, okay?
Exactly.
You're going to do what she wants to do. And then when you already, you become an item, all of a sudden you become who you are. And the person says, but this is not the guy I did. This is not the woman I wanted. I think to me, you got to be authentic from the beginning of you are. You got to set the rules straight. This is who I am. This is what I like to do. And then it's up to you to make the choice.
Yeah. And I think the ones that do that and they don't have like a type, you'll hear people come out and say, oh, this season, oh, she's blonde. I like dark features. Well, then Love is Blind is not the show for you, right? Like, why did you do that?
Right.
But
Because he didn't know she was behind.
I mean, what are the odds you're going to get a blonde?
Yes,
Versus,
give me Love is Blind, give me brunette, 5'2",
I mean, the odds are high that
Right.
you might find someone who's not your type,
Well,
right?
my husband laughs because I used to have black hair and now I've lightened it, and he feels like he's married to a different person now. So he's very.
But that might be something that spices it up.
It changed. I've always said change is a spice of life.
Yeah.
I think you got to reinvent yourself as you get older.
Yeah.
I think it's important to show the different type of personality, different characters. I think it makes it exciting for a man. He doesn't want the same bland housewife, the same, then we like changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And we change, like it or not, we change.
Right,
Yeah, we
all
do.
change. So
I
we
hope
have to.
so.
We have to grow with those changes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom always said just grow, but grow sort of looking in the same direction.
Together,
Yes,
exactly.
sure.
And that's when a lot of situations in our age happen is like one's growing in this direction and the other's either stagnant or growing in a different direction, and then they don't see a way forward.
Right. Right. Does that happen too? I mean, I wonder as well about these people in their 70s that come to you, that some of them are on the brink of retirement and what they want to do with the rest of their lives, which are now thankfully longer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there may not be matching up.
That totally plays into it.
right.
Someone wants to, the husband wants to travel,
Right.
and the wife wants to spend a lot of time with the grandkids,
Right.
and so they're local. One of them wants to go out with friends more or try a new activity more, and the other one's not really interested in that. So I think that good couples, they're talking about these changes and they're growing with these changes, not getting stuck. So you look at that partner and you're like, I can't wait to have these last, whatever it is, 10, 20 years, if you're talking about a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old, we want to have these years enjoying each other. And some people can't see that with the person that they're with.
Are we human overall are made to be monogamous?
I think we definitely can be. I think we definitely can be. A lot of the men that I work with, they don't necessarily want someone else. They want the person that they're with.
But we change, we grow, as you get older, your values are different as when you are 20, 30 years old, you know. And I think to me, that's why we see that many ways of divorce in the mid-50s, the pre-golden and golden, because they want something new. They want,
Maybe the spice is to open up the marriage for a little bit and then
what?
to have an open marriage.
I have an opinion on that.
And you know what?
is
That's
it?
very common. That's very common.
Yeah. What is
That's very common.
When I'm being honest, I tell people, I say, what is my, how many couples have you helped stay together? And the number's high because I use science-backed tools with people, right? So the numbers are high. And I say, what percentage of open marriages have I been able to say?
Yes.
Very, very few.
Okay.
Very few, because eventually in an open relationship, one person is on board, one person's not on board, one person starts to have a deeper connection with the other person.
That's a problem.
That makes the other person, insecure. It should be, it makes them insecure. Now they start being more controlling. The other person doesn't like that. Yeah. So I don't, the only way that the only people that I know that I've worked with who came in an open marriage and are still together and still together happy have changed that agreement. Mm-hmm. So they've gone from open to not open.
Okay, I'm gonna say something. And
I'm not entertaining it.
No. But I'm really gonna say something and that being very
get
open.
Ready. Okay,
and then get very open.
Embracing myself.
Escort service is $1 billion industry in this country. Okay, and I'm a great believer that they serve a purpose. Men sometimes use escort service just to have that physical relief. There is no attachment, there is no love, there is no feeling to it. It's just that physical relief, and that's why that industry is very popular. Yeah. So to me, there is, I'm not going to say, but there's a lot of people who are using escort service because they are not sexually fulfilled in their marriage, and they do not want to leave their marriage because they love their wife. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I only see those cases where they've been caught. So they're coming in because
it's an affair.
They know.
Having an affair, you've been caught.
Yeah.
Using a service, you don't been caught.
Wait.
But
so you're saying
people
you're saying it's not an affair if you use a...
No, there is no... Remember one thing, to have an affair, you have to have a connection, mental connection, to be able to have an affair with a woman. Okay,
I would disagree. Book somewhere?
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never read that.
No. You have to have a mental connection. You meet her, you go out with her.
I would definitely say that's an affair. Yeah, because
that's an affair. That's an affair.
No, we're saying that.
But having called in an escort.
No, we're saying that.
No, I'm saying that's an affair.
It's not an affair. Men do not consider that an affair.
Oh my God,
because you know what? Like Charlie Sheen said, I pay them to leave.
No, I get it, and I'm not judging it, but I am saying that, in my opinion, that would be an affair.
That would be, So I do see. I know that a lot of people use it because a lot of people have come in, and typically the wife has found out in some way that the husband is doing.
Yeah, they have to have a burner.
Having escort service. So
that's a whole other one.
That's definitely considered an affair, and they come in and they have to do affair recovery. Yeah, because that when the partner finds out, whether it's a husband finding out or a wife finding out, if you're not married, his partner's finding out, that is traumatic. That is very traumatic. Right. So the trust has been broken in the relationship.
You've betrayed the
and many men have said, well, I just had an emotional affair, that doesn't count. So people think
emotional affair. I think emotional affair count to me. When you have an emotional affair, it's much deeper than having an escort service. Completely different feeling.
Yeah.
Completely different feeling.
So I would say that if women and men cheat, women and men cheat.
Yes.
I would say when women cheat, men have more trouble with the physical aspect of that affair. When a man cheats, women have more problems with the emotional aspects of the affair. Like it's not that the sex is nothing, but it's like, did you buy her gifts? How many times did you see her? What kind of conversations did you have
you're talking about an affair. I'm not talking about an escort service where you go.
This is good. Another opportunity to look inside your brain.
It's not an affair. I think to me, calling a service to coming up and service sexually.
Okay, I will tell you, if my husband did that, that is to me an
But
affair.
You will not know. There is no need for you to know. What would you know?
Well, I think
you don't know. About those trips in Vegas. All those guys goes in Vegas. What do you think we do in Vegas?
It's so in my profession, that's an affair. Okay. And like I said, I see people who get caught. So they're calling me saying my wife just found out I was calling escort service, or the wife is calling me. So in those cases, this is the problem. Like, affairs are all over the board in what they're described.
Yeah.
Is it an infidelity if you are making a lot of comments on another woman's social media, if you're having text only conversations, but they're graphic
Well, my husband
and they're
and I
personal.
talk a lot about over the years our work wife and work husband. I had a work husband at work, like a guy who I was very, very close with for many years. And, but we never crossed the line in any way.
And that's it's the boundary, right? If you're able to have the boundary with that
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
But
He was a friend.
Affairs infidelity goes from here to here today.
Let's just say, Jamie, that you had a problem at home with your husband and you and him didn't get along and you've been fighting constantly. And that guy, the guy you were mentioning,
work husband.
Your work husband start giving you attention. All of a sudden, it's going to look much better because he's giving you attention, you're emotionally attached, and then you don't know what's leading to that. You know what I'm saying? So I think to me, emotionally, having an affair emotionally is much more deeper than calling an escort service and being physically relief.
Okay.
To me,
I disagree.
They all
but
fall under
we're
the
gonna
same
have
category.
to leave it
Agree
there.
to disagree. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agree.
Okay.
So
And
if you like, to all our audience,
Yeah.
please,
Yes,
I would
let
like
us
to
know
hear
what
your
they
point
think.
of view.
I agree. I would
I would love to hear what
that.
you think about that.
Okay.
Yes.
I would love to. Okay.
I would love
All
to
right.
hear
We're almost sort of at our time, but I had a couple of just quick marriage myth or truth that we're
Okay.
going to ask you. Okay.
Okay.
Love should feel easy.
Myth.
Okay. It's right. It's hard. Okay.
Not always.
Yes.
Not always, but sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
If you're fighting, something's wrong.
Myth.
Okay.
Myth.
Chemistry fades.
Depends on what you're doing with the other things. It depends on how much you're nurturing the
having the
relationship in
escort
other
service.
areas. Then it has faded.
Having
Okay.
an escort
Then it has
service.
Oh my God.
It takes more work. It takes more intentionality.
Okay.
Chemistry. It
Chemistry,
does. Chemistry.
yeah. It
because
takes
this
more
is where we also
intentionality.
differ.
It's all about chemistry.
But you think that chemistry should just be there. I think you need to stoke it.
Chemistry is there or not.
Okay.
For me, chemistry is there or not. You know if you have it or you don't.
All right. You shouldn't have to ask for affection.
I think that's a myth. Some people want it, some don't. And if you're someone who wants it,
more communicative.
then you have to be more communicative about that.
Good couples, I love this one, don't need therapy.
Just myth. Myth.
Right. We should all
Yeah,
need-
I think we're all going to hit a point
Yes.
at which we need a little help.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one that I have on here is just the last one is 7-year itch. Is that a myth or truth? Or is it, like you said, Esther Perel, we just sort of hit different
Yeah, I
points?
think to me that's a myth. That's not a number that I see,
Yeah.
that I necessarily see a lot of people coming in.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
It's like longer now because...
It's longer, or honestly, some of it's shorter because and COVID played a big part in it. So I also am seeing some people on the younger end where they got married or they had children in the pandemic, and that created a bunch of issues for them right off the bat. So, but I've been doing this 25 years. I've never noticed a pattern with 7 years.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Well, we've had so much
Wow.
fun with you.
Wow. So please follow us. All the comment we love to hear. Okay. And it
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah. How it was
Thank
good for
you.
you?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Thank you
it.
for
It was
coming.
great to
Thank
be
you.
on here.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great to be
Thank
on
All
you.
right.
here.
We'll see you next time in my hometown.